Hey everyone, my friends call me Krusty, and this is Cruising with Krusty. Some of my fellow riders will ask from time to time how I plan some of my multi-day or long-distance rides. For instance, when we went up to Nova Scotia 2 years ago, up through the Cabot Trail, up around the top of Nova Scotia and back through Maine. Last year, when we took a week and rode the coast of New Brunswick, all the way back again through Maine and home. How do I plan those rides? And then how do I navigate the plan that I made? Well, I'll use Google Maps and Waze and Reaver, and there's lots of navigation apps out there. While I'll use these from time to time in specific situations, in order to develop a personalized and customized road trip and then navigate what I've planned, I use a web-based application called Furkot Trip Planner. And then once that plan is finalized, I'll put that into an app called Scenic. And in the next two videos, I want to introduce you to these two applications. Together, for me, they form kind of a powerhouse combo that I can use even for, a 2-day or 3-day ride in our area. Now, I'm not getting paid or sponsored to promote these. These are just things that I've developed over the years and become comfortable with. You may not like them. You may want to stick with whatever apps and programs you're using to plan and navigate. I want you to do that because as two-wheel riders, we need to be very comfortable with the systems we got when we're going to use them. Um, in a previous video, I've kind of explained how I have come to determine whether or not I even need to plan a ride. You may want to go back and look at that one. Some rides don't need this level of planning, but this year we're going to be taking 3 or 4 long distance rides. And for me, long distance means, we're going to take a week. My wife's going to take a week off of work. We're going to use that to go travel, just jump on the bike and go. And so I want to have a plan and a navigation app that will help me ride that plan. So if you use others, that's totally fine. I'm not here to promote this one over anything else. This is just to answer the question, how do I plan it when I go? So 2 videos coming up for you. Let's gear up, let's saddle up, and let's go. We recently had a major storm here in the northeastern US where we live. I'll usually try to ride in the winter if the temps are above freezing and the roads are in decent shape, but with a storm like this past one and the extended duration of some below freezing temps this year, it's going to eliminate any winter riding for at least the next 4 to 6 weeks. So, what to do? Plan rides while I wait for warmer weather. All right, so let's get into finding and using the Furkot Trip Planning app. I'm going to minimize this screen for you so you can watch what I'm doing. Just go into whatever your browser is. Mine happens to be Google. Type in Furkot, F-U-R-K-O-T, and it should bring up Furkot Road Trip Planner. We're going to click on that. It's going to bring you to the sign-in page. Now, if you don't have a login already, you can use this button up in the top right-hand corner to sign up for Furkot. You can just use the free version of Furkot if you wish. There is a paid version that gives you a few more features. And honestly, it's next to nothing. I think right now it's $14 a year, about 3 cents a day or something like that, to get those extra features. I use the paid version, so there may be a few things in here that you might not find on the free version. So I'm gonna log into Furkot and then come right back on. Okay, this is the opening page when you log into Furkot. It'll show you all of the trips that you have planned. Now, you're probably looking at me a little wide-eyed. These are a bunch of trips that I've taken in the past as well as ones that I have planned for the future. So for instance, One of the trips we've got planned this year is vacation number one. We're going to go do some national parks. The dates aren't accurate, but I have to put something in there when I create these rides. I can tell right off the bat this is a motorcycle ride because of the little icon. It's going to be about 2,800 miles. If I estimate costs on this, it'll be about $2,000 if I stay in hotels, restaurants, gas, everything that I've estimated. It will be more or less than that, depending on where I stay and what we actually do, how much the parks cost, that sort of stuff. But all of the rides that you've got planned will be listed in here. I don't want to deal with those right now. Right now, what I want to show you is how to plan a trip in Furkot. In order to do that, you're going to go up to this button right here, New Trip. Hit the plus, and the first screen that's going to come up is this kind of outline of your trip. You're going to identify where the ride's going to start, where the ride's going to end, and you're going to give it a name. So let's just say we want to start in Worcester. I don't know, I'll just make up an address. 500 Main Street, Worcester. It'll come up with some suggestions. If the address isn't actually there, it won't show it. Let's see what it says. Main Street and Crystal Street, Worcester. That's, oh, Clark University parking lot. There we go. We'll start in their parking lot. What's the end point? Let's say that for this trip, I want to go out to Mount Greylock. And that's out in Adams, Mass. And there it is, it pops up. I'm going to click on that. It will allow you to choose loop back to the starting point. I don't suggest you do that right at the beginning. You can do that again later on. Once the beginning of the trip is planned, then you can tell it just to loop back. Or at any time in your planning, you can say, okay, most of this is done, just loop me back to my start point. But we can do that later. I'm going to give this trip a name. I'm going to call it Mount Greylock Test. Once you've done those things, you want to hit next. There's going to be some other options that come up. One is, when is this ride going to take place? So let's say I'm going to wait until April 1st. It's going to be a day trip, just a one-day trip, so it's the same day, same date. How long do you want your days to be? Basically, our longer trips especially, we leave about 9 o'clock. I'll usually leave at 9 o'clock, stop about an hour and a half out, find a coffee shop, something like that. You can change this. I leave this at 11:55 p.m. Because otherwise it's going to try to stop your ride at 6 o'clock or give you warnings that you've gone past your time. So I find it easier just to 11:55 p.m. I've got the whole day to plan. If I do end up going overnight, despite my dates, I can change that later on as well. I'm going to travel by motorcycle. It's got different icons. What kind of roads? Right now, when these are lit up green, you've got prefer highways where available and prefer toll roads. Unless I'm going point A to point B, like from here to see a relative in the Midwest or something, and we just need to get there, I usually turn these off. So if I click on those once, it'll change that to avoid highways where possible and avoid toll roads where possible. If it is an overnight trip, I can choose what kind of overnight accommodations I want, hotels or motels, apartments, hostels, campgrounds, and whether or not I'm going to have pets with me. Once I've figured this out, and this doesn't really need to be very detailed, trust me, you can change most of this stuff later. I'm just going to hit done. And the first thing it's going to do is pull up a route map of your ride. There's some buttons up here that I'm going to go through very, very quickly. This global one allows you to do map overlays. So if I want to see the terrain, I can do that, or satellite. Sometimes I'll go in close on something and take a look and see in advance what the parking looks like, that sort of stuff. Whether or not I want to add colors to different routes. You can change colors so it can be blue for the first day, green for the second day, that sort of stuff. And basically in English, what your language is. This button here, show the entire trip. If If I click on that, it'll just kind of recenter the whole trip right into the screen. If I have a specific stop I'm looking at and I want that to be in the middle of the screen, I can center that as well. This button here is pretty important. Keep an eye on this from time to time. If you don't use the computer or if you don't use the mapping system in a while, it'll kind of turn itself off. And you got to make sure if you're editing this trip that you've got this icon lit up. All right. Now the actual trip planning itself, there's 5 tabs along the side here. Trip, plan, sleep, eat, and find. Right now I've simply told it in those opening screens, we're going to start in Worcester, we're going to end at Mount Greylock, and I've planned no other stops, no gas stops, no rest stops, nothing. I've simply told it to avoid highways and avoid toll roads. And so it has laid out a path to Mount Greylock. I can agree with it or disagree with it if I want to later on. So for instance, if I simply wanted to leave and go below Worcester, let's say I wanted to stop up here. I know if I bring this up into the center, scroll down to focus in on it, I happen to know there's a lookout up here. Right? You've probably been there, Enfield Lookout over the Quabbin Reservoir. I could click on this, tell it I want to stay there for 30 minutes and hit save. And it's going to reroute me and reroute the whole route so that I can get to this lookout. And then over there to Mount Greylock. So let's take a quick look at this trip tab. This trip tab is basically an outline and some further instructions on how you want Furkot to arrange your ride. So as you can see, it's got all the information we entered in at the beginning. The date, we begin on 4/1 at 9 a.m. We're going to finish the trip same day at 11:55. Now there's 2 buttons here. This is a fixed date trip, or I can open-end this thing. Most of the time, if you're doing just a 1-day trip, fixed date trip is fine. If I'm doing anything more than a 1-day trip, I do open it up. Make this an open-ended trip, okay? Because what I may do is decide, oh my gosh, I thought this was going to be a 1-day trip, but it's going to be a 2-day trip. And so if it's open-ended, I can insert a hotel in here anywhere. And it's just going to be much easier to use the features of Furkot if I do that. So whenever possible, I suggest doing an open-ended trip. Again, here's that option. You can come back at any point in your planning and loop back to the starting point. If I click on that now, Furkot's going to add a loop back. It's going to loop me back over the top of the Quabbin and back down, because this is what it originally wanted to do, and I told it to go to the Enfield Lookout. Okay, so on the loop back, it's going to try to go back up the way it came. Click that off, hit X. You can detail for Furkot what kind of stops, overnight accommodations you want. So again, you've got the same options you did in the beginning. I tend to leave these blank so I can choose as I'm planning. If I want to limit how much travel I do during the day or the hours that I do it, I can do it here. So again, we've got the 9 a.m. to 11:55 p.m. option that we already suggested. Or you can tell it, I only want to go so many miles a day. I don't want to do more than 250 miles a day. Okay, and what it's going to do is it's going to look at the route, say, okay, here's 250 miles. That's your limit for the day. And it's going to put a little icon there that says, you probably ought to stop and get some rest at this point, because that's what you said you wanted to do. I can say, oh, I only want to be on the bike for 5 hours that day, top. And every stopover, it's automatically going to time that at 30 minutes or whatever you put here. If I put an hour for every stop, every time I stop for gas, it's going to automatically add an hour to the trip. Okay. Roads, again, I have the option of avoiding highways or going highways, toll roads. I can tell it what to do about ferries. A lot of planners and GPS apps now have these options as well. If I want to do unpaved or prohibit unpaved roads, right now that's set at prohibit. I don't like going on them. Every once in a while I end up on them, but It's usually my mistake when I do that. Or I prefer major roads with minimized turns. These other two I don't bother with, be honest with you, warnings and stuff like that. You can experiment with them, see if you want to. There's some settings in here that'll helpful to look at. Make sure you get them set. Kilometers versus miles. Of course, we use miles here. The clock, you can do the 24-hour military clock or the AM, PM, whether you want your temperatures, that it gets displayed in Fahrenheit or not, and any warnings you want. So show warnings for weekend stops. I'd leave it that. This is what I tend to use quite a bit. Let Furkot schedule refueling stops automatically. I will usually click on that. What this is going to do is every whatever miles I tell it, I like to go about 160 miles before I fill up. That is about an hour and a half's worth of riding on most trips. So I tell it, just because I want to make sure I'm paying attention, for butt brakes and for gas stops. At 160 miles, tell me when I've reached that point so I can look for a gas station for a butt brake or a real gas brake. I also tell it how long I'm going to be there. So again, I just leave it at 30. If I'm doing an iron butt or something like that, I'll cut that down to 15 or 20 minutes because we try to get in and out real quick and just keep moving. Whether or not you want a warning or not, if it's more than half a tank is left. I tend to turn this off, especially really long rides. If I've got something planned for the middle of Nevada, and I'm seeing a stretch where I need to stop and get a gas at a certain point, even though I might be a little more than half a tank, I don't want it to give me a warning and tell me that. It's going to show up as a red icon on the map. I don't care for that. So just let me stop where I'm going to stop, regardless of how much gas I have in the tank. Don't give me a warning and let me go on my way. So this one is very helpful, and I do recommend that. Now, again, for longer trips, overnight trips, vacations, you can have Furkot estimate the costs. So if I tell it to track the expenses for this trip, I can tell it, give me an allowance for lodging, for food, for miscellaneous stuff, how much it costs me per mile, and based on the mileage, it'll estimate my gas costs as well. I do that for longer trips. I won't do it for this one. And the other ones, again, offline. If I happen to go offline, am I going to have access to this plan? So I usually click that one as well. You can do rentals right from the app. I've done this before for using hotels. You can also do it for rental cars. I do believe you pay a little more when you use this option than you might if you find something on Furkot and then go directly to their website. So this is the Trip Planner tab. I also want you to notice down at the bottom, you get a little summary down here. What's the distance that you're traveling that day? Right now, one way is 122 miles. I've got 4 hours of riding time. Because it's just one day, the averages are exactly the same. If I have a multi-day trip, it'll tell me an average mileage and average riding time per day. Now, the Plan tab. This is where you're going to be able to see a little more of the ride in more detail. The plan is to start at the Clark University parking lot, leave at 9 a.m. We're going to go about 40 miles. Should take about an hour and 5 minutes. And we should be pulling into the Enfield Lookout at 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:04 to be exact, because it's an hour and 4 minutes estimate. We always go usually a little faster than that because I tend to have a heavy foot and a heavy right hand. This is good for planning purposes, okay? I'm going to pull into the Enfield Lookout at 10:04, and because I designated that was going to be a half-hour stop, we're going to be pulling out of there at 10:34. Going to go another 83 miles, and that's 2.5 hours. That's a long shot for my wife and I anyways. We can go about 2 hours, but 2.5 hours is pushing it. If we didn't have any other stops planned, we would arrive at the Mount Greylock at 1 o'clock, okay? Now, we've also gone through our lunch hour at this point, whether or not that's needed. So one of the things I'll do is kind of look at this plan and try to make sure each of these intervals is around an hour and a half, hour to hour and a half. That way, we're pretty well rested by the time we get anywhere. We're not cramping up, and we can still walk when we get off the bike. and gas is taken care of. So if I leave at 10:30, I need to look for something en route at about 12 o'clock, someplace to stop. Now, one of the neat things is if you put your pointer on the route itself, it'll tell you the date, what time on the route it is, and how many miles you've gone since your last stop. So I know I'm looking for someplace on the route, and it's going to be about 12 o'clock, right? So I'm getting into this range here. So I'm going to pull this into the center of the map, and then I'm going to scroll down on it, see where I'm at. Click on the Eat tab. That's going to give us a lot of options for places to stop. Restaurants, fast food, gas stations, coffee shops, bunch of stuff. And let's see if we can find some place in or around here that is either a gas stop, a butt break, maybe a coffee shop or a lunch place, something like that. So the first thing I might do is look for a coffee shop. Here's a list of everything it's found in the range of the map. Now it's finding some spots up in here, which I'm probably not going to go to. Here's a place called the Wicked Good Cafe. And if I go to the Wicked Good Cafe and click on it, breakfast, brunch, coffee, tea, bakeries. Sounds kind of nice. So why don't I click on this and get a description of the place? And if I do that, it'll pull me up into Yelp. And I've got some photos and some other information here. I can see the hours. Sometimes this information isn't kept up. So you do need to go to the website for the business itself to check it out. And this one it's telling me it's closed on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but it is open 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., which means it'll be open around noontime on the weekends. I'm going to say, okay, we're going to stop here. It's automatically going to plug in the 30-minute duration. Again, at the date, what time I'm arriving, 30-minute duration. Departing on the same day, at 30 minutes afterwards is 12:19. It's also going to tell me sunrise, sunset, a bunch of information, temperature-wise, kind of what to expect as well. Now you can see I'm an hour and 4 minutes to the lookout, I'm an hour and 15 to the cafe, and then I'm an hour and 11 minutes to Mount Greylock. That's a nicely spaced little ride. I can click out of that. Another option is if you hit this find button. There's options for finding things. One of the ones I will use the most is museums and man-made structures. I find a lot of interesting things here. I'm not a big museums guy, but I can find some neat monuments and covered bridges and other things in the area. So again, you'll notice I'm entering a historic district. Oh look, Creamery Covered Bridge. So if I found this, I might surprise my wife if she was with me and say, oh hey, we're gonna have a cup of coffee, and then after a cup of coffee say, hey, let's go check out this covered bridge. She didn't see it coming, she didn't know about it. I look like a hero. So we hit this covered bridge. If I want to add that as a stop, and again, I can zoom down on this to kind of find out where this is, whether or not it's something I can actually get to on a bike. It looks like the Creamery Covered Bridge is actually right there. So I might try to check it out. The other option is to, again, click on it, click on the description, or just Google Creamery Covered Bridge to go check it out. Again, for the purposes of today, I'm just going to add it as a stop. Furkot is going to say, okay, you want to go there? Let's hit that before we head out to Mount Greylock. And again, hit this show the entire trip button, and there you go. So I'm still going about 3 minutes after I get coffee, hit the covered bridge, and then we'll head to Mount Greylock. Now I'm getting into Mount Greylock about 2 o'clock. So if I go back, get out of the plan window and go back to the trip window and say, okay, loop me back to the starting point, and then close the trip window, go back into the plan window, you can see two things. One, it's added in a gas stop. It said, hey, you're hitting about 160 miles when you leave Greylock and come back and get to about this point. So when you get here, you need to start looking for gas stations. Okay. I also know that it's going to be about 30 miles and 57 minutes before I hit that. It might be a nice place to stop. And then I still have a 2-hour ride home. So with no other stops planned after the gas stop, I'm getting home at 6:13 p.m. So I'm starting to realize this is a full day ride. And if I go back to the trip planner, all the way down to the bottom, I can see, okay, I'm at 235 miles for the day and about 7 hours of riding time. That's going to be a significant trip. I might want to plan dinner in here at some point on the way home just to give me an extra stop. Might want to plan another butt break. And again, you can go into this Eat tab and you can say, let's narrow down to this gas thing. There's a gas pump icon here. Hit gas and it'll show you all the gas stations. Now it's not showing me anything near this, so I've got to make a decision. Either I've got to stop before or I've got to push the limit and hit this gas station up here, because it's taking me Route 116, which is a nice little road in Central Mass, by the way, if you ever get a chance to ride it. But there's not a lot of gas stations there, or at least ones that Furkot recognizes. So what I might do for the return trip is maybe stop at Cumberland Farms or 7-Eleven, something like that. So let's say I'm going to hit Cumberland Farms. We're going to stop there. It's going to be a 30-minute stop, 3:04 p.m., and we'll hit X out of that. So again, it's going to take me from Mount Greylock, about 30 minutes away. I'm going to hit the Cumberland Farms, be there for 30 minutes, change that if I wanted to down to like 20 minutes, because we're probably not going to stay there very long, just enough to gas up. Hit save, close that window. So again, it's telling me I'm going to pull in at 3, I'm going to pull out at 3:24 because I just changed the time on that. I'm still getting home 6 o'clock, which is still, a little bit late. I'm going to close that window and go back to the full ride. So you're starting to get a sense for how these tabs work. Now, there is another one that I want to show you, which is this sleep tab. So if this were a longer trip and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, it's going to go farther than I want it to, I'm going to need to find a place to stay. This does give you some options. If I hit that sleep button, it's going to create this big green circle. And within that circle, it's going to show me any hotels, because I've got hotels and motels selected. It's going to show me any hotels or motels within that green spotted area. Now again, if I want to add apartments and private rooms, it's going to show me those as well. If I want to do camping and tenting, it'll show me all of those options as well. Okay, but let's just keep it at hotels and motels for now. I want to arrange this by its reviews. That's what these little hearts are, right? 5 hearts, 4 hearts, 3 hearts. So you'll recognize, Fairfields, Holiday Inns, those sorts of things, Courtyards, Hampton Inns, some usual names. But it will show you some places like the Black Walnut Inn. And again, if you click on that and then click on the tab, it'll take you into Yelp, I believe, or Booking.com, and you can kind of check out the place, right? At least with the pictures. I don't want to see if it's available yet, but I do just want to kind of check it out. Show me all the pictures of the place, some inside, some outside. I'm kind of looking at this point, is the place well managed? Do I have parking? It looks like there's some parking in the back over here. There's a driveway that goes around to the back. It looks like it's kind of a cool building out front, but it looks like the rooms are probably just kind of regular hotel rooms. Although when I look at the pictures, they look pretty well furnished, pretty nice. Got a little counter with chairs, that sort of stuff. Cute little place. So I might want to stay there if I was planning the ride. So let's say, okay, I do want to stay there. Black Walnut Inn, I'm going to add this as a new stop. It doesn't know if I'm going to stop on the way out or the way back. So it's plugged in to Black Walnut Inn at 11:16 a.m. on day 1. I don't really want that. What I want is this more towards probably after our Cumberland Farm stop down here someplace. So there's a couple of options. You've got the up and down arrow keys where you can pull this up or down in your plan and move things around. That becomes very helpful sometimes. You can also grab it. If you kind of click on it, let me X out of that for a second. If I click on it and drag it, I can bring it down after Cumberland Farms, plug it in there, see if it worked. Look at that, right after Cumberland Farms. Now I know it's really going to be the first day because it's put all that other stuff in, and so at the end of day one is now 4:45. I'm pulling into the Black Walnut Inn, and that's this red icon here. And then I would leave at 9 a.m. the next day, go for about an hour and a half, get back to the parking lot about 10:22. Okay, so if you're doing multiple day trips, this can become very handy as well. When you see your plan and you say, "Oh my gosh, okay, well, it's 6 o'clock about here. We really need to find a place to sleep." Hit that sleep tab. It'll give you some ideas. And again, you can use Furkot to make take it to bookings or wherever and do the reservations. I found it costs a little more, or you can just say, oh, okay, this looks really cool, and then use their website, or if you have arrangements with some other booking place, a membership, you can do the booking yourself. All right, that's a quick overview of Furkot, the web-based app that I use for ride planning. There's other features in there that I haven't really gone into in depth. They're pretty common across ride planning and navigation apps, so I'm sure you'll be familiar with them anyways. My suggestion at this point, if you want to check out Furkot, again, go on to Google, log it up, sign up, get yourself an account, and just play with it. Do what I did. Choose a start point and an end point, and then play around planning a trip and just see how it goes for you, how it works. It does take some time to get used to it, figure out where everything is, how everything works. Like anything else, there's a learning curve with it. So if you think it's something you'd like to use, stick with it for a bit and just practice making plans. So that's all for this video. Thank you for tuning in. Keep an eye open for video number 2 on the Scenic app, where I'm going to take the trip that we just planned together. I'm going to load it up into the navigation app and show you how that works and how I use it. Thanks so much. See you soon.